You're listening to Binjang 91.5, and now it's time for Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Tony. Great to be chatting technology again.
It always is. Now, do you sometimes get stuck in analysis paralysis when it comes to choosing a Netflix show to watch?
Absolutely. There are often times, Tony. In fact, I'd probably say more often than not, if we're just going to catch a quick show while we're eating dinner, or just wanting to have a quick little flick at something where we've got 15 minutes to spare, it takes us longer to actually pick what we're going to watch than it does to watch what we're going to watch, because there are so many choices. And Netflix is only one of the streaming services available, but they've got tens of thousands of titles. When you combine all the other streaming services, plus your pay TV and your free-to-air, it's so hard to find what to actually watch. And Netflix recognises this. They recognise the fact that people do struggle to find something to watch. So they've introduced a new feature. Now, the feature in the past has been they'll give you some suggestions where it'll say, given the fact that you've watched these shows in the past, we think you might want to choose one of these. But it still involves you making a choice. So they're making it more like free-to-air TV now, where you just turn on Netflix and you can just select Shuffle Play, and it will just choose a show automatically for you based on what you've watched in the past, based on things that you might have clicked as a favourite or to watch in the future, but mainly based on just things that you've watched. So it uses that, runs some algorithms and just runs a show for you, a bit like if you sit down and turn on the TV and just turn on whatever channel you prefer to watch and some show comes up, a bit like the same as that. So it's almost back to the future from a streaming perspective, all that choice, but it's too much choice for some people.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, is there any evidence that hackers are profiting from email scams? Now, I guess if you're getting all these emails and you delete them all, you think, how could this work for them?
Well, you're exactly right. Many people I speak with about email scams think, well, I see these come through all the time, I delete them. Surely no one actually falls for them. And unfortunately, they're very sophisticated and people do actually fall for some of them. And it's not their own fault. Again, it's that sophistication. And there's been a Brisbane accountant at the moment who has been charged with money laundering. And what this particular accountant has allegedly done, we can't of course say that she's done anything because she hasn't been convicted yet, but what she's allegedly done is basically laundered $3.3 million so far by email scams. And what they do with these particular scams is if I send you an invoice, for example, Tony, you might receive that invoice and then I might send you another email and say, oh, Tony, I sent you an invoice, but I've got a new bank account now. Can you pay into this bank account? And you think, oh, well, that's fine. Matthew's given me an invoice. It's all legitimate. I know I owe him that money, so I'll send it to his new bank account. Unfortunately, what someone manages to do is hack into my email system and send that second email to you, which is a fake email. The first one was legitimate. You really do owe me the money. The second one saying about my bank details changed is the one that gets you. You think it's all okay. You change the bank details. You pay the money. I ring you in a week's time. Tony, where's my money? I paid you a week ago, Matthew. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. On it goes. And then finally they realise that obviously the money's been paid elsewhere. And so the advice around that is that if you do receive an email for, say, example, an invoice that's got new bank details, I'd ring that particular supplier of yours and make sure that they really have changed. Or the random email that says we've changed bank details, I'd be very suspicious about that. And I'd actually check with your supplier as well. But it obviously is working. Here's one person who allegedly has transferred $3.3 million in this process, and that's only one person.
Well, the dirty rats, eh?
I'm sure some people that have lost some money have probably called them worse than that.
Yes. Well, they use trickery really more than anything else to trip people up, don't they?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we have a lot of faith and trust in an email, but if I send you a letter, there's no proof that that letter came from me. I can write any name I want on the back of that letter. And it's the same with an email. It's very easy for me to send you an email and you think it came from me. So there's no checking or proof that I actually sent that email to you. So yeah, it's sophisticated trickery and they make things look legitimate and people very easily fall for it. We have a lot of faith and confidence in email.
Yes, Matthew. Now, this next question I've got is to do with going back 25 years ago. Now, I thought, as a guy in tech like you are, that you wouldn't be reminiscing too much. You'd be thinking forward rather than backwards. But anyway, 25 years ago, we had Windows 95, didn't we?
Well, I remember it very well, Tony. I opened my business at midnight. I remember seeing a picture in the paper of me pretending to be asleep at the keyboard while we had the business open. So we opened up ready to launch Windows 95, and because of the time zones around the world, you could be one of the first people in the world to own Windows 95 right here and in my business in Dubbo, and we had about 2 people came in. So I think I sold 2 copies at that midnight launch. So it wasn't quite as big. It was pretty big around the world. There were people lined up at businesses around the world, but that was the launch of the interface as we know it now. The start button was that was the first time we saw that start button. The previous version was Windows 3.1, and so you had a lot of changes that occurred with Windows 95. It really was the launch, if you like, from a Windows perspective of that modern operating system. The what you see is what you get, that WYSIWYG concept. Of course, Macintosh said that they stole all the features from Macintosh, and I think they probably did steal a few features there. But lots of things we saw for the first time. One of the things that I do remember was the ability to call a file with a name that was more than 8 characters. I mean, it seems ridiculous now. The things you used to have to do to try and come up with a naming convention that made sense when you only had 8 characters and no spaces in there. So you had all these ridiculous file names, and you'd be looking back through them going, now what was that one? That was CB8529A. Oh, was that the one about Charlie Brown? So it was very difficult. But it was a pretty big event.
Yes.
Jay Leno helped launch the software. Bill Gates was obviously still involved with Microsoft at the time. So they had this huge production there. They had Rolling Stone, Start Me Up playing. So it was a pretty big event. I think they even had a couple of their Friends stars, Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry, who created this little sitcom about Windows 95. So you can imagine then Microsoft were at the peak of their powers. Money was no object to Microsoft. I remember a few years after that actually attending, I was in LA for a conference over there, and they actually shut down Universal Studios. So Microsoft got Universal Studios shut down so conference attendees could have Universal Studios all to themselves for a full day. Can you imagine the expense, what they would have had to pay for that? So yeah, it was a pretty big event back then, but what we've got now is really built on the back of Windows 95.
Yeah, look, I remember that. There was lineups out of stores for miles and miles.
Yeah.
The amount of interest in Windows 95 was absolutely huge back then.
Yeah, it was.
And my, how things have changed. The same sort of hysteria, I suppose you'd call it, eventually wound up being the domain of the Macintosh and the iPhone and everything to do with Apple.
Yeah, we don't get so excited about computer software or computer launches anymore, but we get more excited about mobile phone launches.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, you'll be listening to BinJay 91.5 Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Stay tuned this afternoon at 3:40 p.m. for our next instalment. And it's back to the music and the community information on BinJay 91.5.
Great, Tony. We'll chat this afternoon.